What was the craziest thing a teacher did when you were in school? My teacher studied ninjutsu and was very vocal about the fact that he was a ninja. One day, he told our class that we would get extra credit if we came to see him take part in a demonstration for teaching self-defense. My grades were crap, so I went to the demo with a few other students, and we watched who I assumed to be my teacher's sensei restraining and pinning my teacher in various different ways. After a routine where the sensei tied up his hands with purse straps, my teacher was red in the face and visibly crying. He didn't mention it the next day at class, or ever. We had exam training for chemistry, but the class was so small we finished early, so our teacher decided to have some fun. He made a 5-foot tower of bubbles with hydrogen gas in the science classroom and lit it on fire. There was a ball of fire that slowly rose to the ceiling. It lit a ceiling tile on fire and we almost had to use an extinguisher to put it out. Luckily the tile was fire retardant and only smoldered a bit. Now there is a black spot on the ceiling. Oh, and my teacher lost an eyebrow and part of his beard. When I talk to buddies from school we still bring it up sometimes. I love that teacher and here's the reason I love science so much. It's as they say, science is just messing around and taking notes of what you did. I had a science teacher who had an inflatable shark blimp that she could control from her desk with a remote. She attached a camera to the bottom of it and flew it around during tests to keep students from cheating off of each other. She was my favorite teacher. A 6th grade sub sent me to the hall for bothering the class. I just dropped my apple. There was a kid standing on a desk. I was sent to the hall for getting hit in the eye by my friend's jacket sleeve. A sub teacher came into my school and everything was normal at first. We were in science and she was the sub, so she was talking about how important science is, and continued for like 8 minutes. Then continued to explain how science lights up the world, and I understood. Then she started flickering the light saying, "Science, no science," over and over again, for like 2 minutes. At the end, it just seemed like she was playing with the lights. Then she was talking about how one of the students, whom we'll call S, was so pretty, and she wouldn't stop. She went on and on. Then she said something to the effect of, "And K, you're very beautiful too." But back to S, and she like wouldn't stop, and my other friend, F, was getting creeped out. The last straw was when she told the class, and I kid you not, this actually happened. "I am a vegetarian but I eat chicken because they don't have faces or brains." The teacher reported her, and never saw her again. That is indeed the last straw. Shoving her hand in a student's mouth to pull out candy cane. Also ridiculing the kid whose father died just a week prior. I had a teacher have a kid spit out her chewing gum into the teacher's hand, and she held it, warm and wet, in her hands for a few minutes while telling us all off about it before throwing in the bin. I once had a teacher that would throw erasers at students if he found out they were English. He would also forgot to take his pills because he fell asleep in class a heck of a lot. 4th grade teacher accidentally hip checked this disruptive hyperactive butthole named Dylan after he was called out for shoving people in line again. She had a huge butt. He went flying. That name is straight fire though. We had a sub in my world history class for a day. Our normal teacher was sick. Definitely was not a long-term situation. This sub explained the hourglass method of writing essays and said this is how we will do things from now on. She said a bunch of other crazy things, but the other one that stood out was her explanation of how Richard Nixon and FedEx sparked the Industrial Revolution. I wish I remembered the other crazy stuff she said, but it was wild. Someone told administration and we found out the next day that the sub had been escorted off the premise before the school day was over. She was also banned from school grounds and ever teaching in the school district again. How Richard Nixon and FedEx sparked the Industrial Revolution. I want an explanation. If you brought Doritos for lunch you had to give him some because he loved Doritos. Sometimes people would get mad because they didn't want to share and he'd give them detention. Eventually no one ever brought him Doritos. Massive power trip. That is funny. Not so much while I was in school, but I hadn't walked the stage yet. It was our high school graduation ceremony and one of the teachers gave his speech then suddenly walked off backstage. The whole room hears the revving of an engine, and then this teacher rides out on his motorcycle across the stage and leaps off the stage and down the center aisle and right out the door. No warning. Wasn't in the itinerary. Just a surprise from an awesome teacher. I wouldn't pay attention and a nun threw an eraser at my head. Early 90s was a lawless place for Catholic school education. I had an older professor that told a story of a teacher who would intentionally leave the chalkboard erasers coated with extra chalk and then throw them at students, causing a puff of chalk dust once they were hit. He said she was quite old and had incredible strength and aim, and also was so quick that she shocked the students every time. A professor at my college held an off-campus extra credit seminar and hired 3 strippers to give lap dances to him and the students. It was for a business ethics class. He taught you well. Punched a student in the nose during 5th grade. Teacher was a Catholic nun. I had to wipe up the blood trail from the classroom to the bathroom door. Headbanged to One by Metallica in front of the class. She was my sophomore English teacher and we were reading All Quiet on the Western Front. She wanted us to feel the music to sympathize with characters who were going to war, so we closed our eyes. Halfway through, when the drums kicked in, we opened our eyes and saw our teacher, who had long, black, curly hair, thrashing her head back and forth. Still the most badass thing I've ever seen a teacher do. Locked my girlfriend in his classroom after school and asked her to frick him after class without his wife knowing, and then tried to convince her to become a stripper after graduation. That escalated quickly. Not a teacher but a sub, but didn't believe her, can't remember what he had. Special ed kid was cognitively impaired because he wore a helmet with special ed written on it. He wore a helmet sometimes because he would have episodes where he would run or slam into things and kept hurting his head. Crank yankers was still a thing, and in an attempt to help make him fit in, some kids showed him all the stuff the other kids were watching and he called himself special ed to combine that with Ed, and Eddie. Anyway, he made the kid take it off, which made Ed have an episode and started slapping the sub and banging his head on his desk till he bled. Don't think the dude subbed at our school again for like years. I feel bad for subs. All we ever did was frick with them, lie to them, and see how far we could push them. Had a teacher bite chalk and spit it in the air in a tantrum when I was 7. My art teacher got sacked because his sex tapes were found and seen by a full year of students on a computer laptop. This particular teacher also kicked a school bag in a tantrum and hit a student bang on the face, which was hilarious. I can't wait for the future where tech-savvy people become teachers. This crap just won't happen. Through many instances of older people using computers and having no idea how to hide or delete stuff, or their search history mayo. We got a new principal my senior year and I wondered why I never saw him around school. At the end of the year, the crap hit the fan when we found out that the principal and the receptionist, also the wife of the grumpy boys gym coach, were having an affair. In 10th grade, my algebra 2 teacher used to cuss us out when we were slightly annoying. It was the 90s. Nobody cared. One of the science teachers was always drunk. The assistant principal was a 6-foot-tall lesbian. One day I was entering a building as she was leaving, and she said, "Where did you come from?" I said, "The locker room." Her response, "Sorry, I missed it." My brother's 7th grade teacher taped his hand over his mouth because he was talking too much. My mom had words with the principal. She didn't trust herself with a teacher. I had a couple of woodwork teachers. Actually, one was English or something, but they were always very clearly stoned. Sent me to the office because I said "Hail Satan" in class. Everyone was chillin' and everyone got quiet as soon as I said it. Apparently the cops got involved and talked to my parents and whatnot, but IDK. She was also the leader of Teens for Christ. Wrong place, wrong time. My buddy spilt water in this teacher's classroom. The teacher ended up throwing his chair across the room and pouring his whole coffee mug onto my buddy's binder and stomped out of the room swearing. I still have no idea where he went, but he never came back. Adults throwing tantrums. I'll never understand it. We had a function in our school once and I was appointed as the anchor. My English teacher, new and quite young, was helping me to prepare my monologue. We didn't have free periods, so we decided to prepare in an empty classroom while other classmates of mine were in the computer lab. I was 5 minutes late as one of my other teachers called me, so I expected my English teacher to be already there in the class. I was sprinting through the hallway as I was late. As soon as I came to the door, I stopped myself and saw my teacher on a video call with his boyfriend and was kissing the phone, and he was too kissing his phone, and I heard something he said like, "Babe, I wanna freak your RN," something like that. I stood there for good 15 seconds so that she would notice and stop. But then when she didn't, I just knocked and she stopped immediately. She knew I saw it, but we both pretended we didn't and did the work quietly. I wanted to tell my friends. That meant telling everyone in school, but considered she was also a human and it's okay. So I never talked about it again. You are a good person for keeping that secret. This is actually pretty recent, happening a day or two before the post. I wasn't actually in the class, but my friends told me a pretty accurate report considering that the school had to release an official statement on it. Supposedly there was this teacher who had been having a generally rough day and a student he had was being rowdy. I know this guy and he's the quiet type, so this instantly sounded weird to me. The teacher had gotten so fed up with the kid that he grabbed the kid, dragged him to the door, and literally threw him out of the class. Aside from the fact that this is like super illegal, the locker behind the kid's head dented from where he was thrown, which just shows exactly how hard this guy tossed him. The teacher is suspended and is currently undergoing a full investigation. From the gossip that I heard between administrators, this guy is facing assault charges and a lawsuit from the parents of the kid. Plus there's like a 90% chance of him getting fired. My school absolutely does not frick around with physical violence. If it's only a 90% chance, they kinda do frick around with physical violence by about 10%. The female theater teacher fricked a junior and distributed prescription pills to students. She got caught, fired and sent to jail. Arrested in the middle of school, which was kinda nice to watch because she was a B to anyone who was not a supreme actor in theater. Drama teachers tend to be fricked up. Mine was a real piece of work. Very juvenile people. Tell me your experiences if you've had positive ones. But I only know positive drama teacher stories from 90s teen movies. Two boys got into a fight. Whatever. Happens all the time. But I guess they wouldn't stop wailing on each other, so the aquatic science teacher hops a table military style and slams both their heads together. Can still hear the smack as their foreheads made contact. Happened at a school in Texas, non-surprisingly. My 8th grade gym coach told his football team in the locker room that he wouldn't be surprised to see me in the newspaper for killing myself or someone else. Said I looked like a school shooter and a loser. He was not fired. Nothing happened to him except the principal made him apologize. That's messed up. I'm sorry you had to deal with that BS. My teacher asked me while I was crossing my legs and twitching my foot for nothing. X. Why are you masturbating? I was completely shocked by her question. Her line of thinking was that when someone is twitching their foot, therefore the act is construed as masturbation. What on earth does a teacher think like this? Oh well, this event is surely etched in my brain for the rest of my life. When in 3rd grade, one time at lunch I noticed the ketchup bottle was clogged. The teacher came over and she squeezed it so hard the cap blew off and flooded my plate with ketchup. I didn't mind though. I love ketchup. Same teacher was also rather strict with me. I missed a lot of recesses when she kept me in class because I refused to eat salad. I simply didn't like the taste. Where to begin? Where to begin? 1. Cut off some of a girl's hair and fed it to someone on a tortilla chip. 2. Duct tape 2 kids together. 3. Made kids wear lipstick and makeup. 4. Made a kid eat coffee grounds. 5. Pour really hot water on a kid. Mr. B and Mrs. B were teachers who were married to each other. They met when Mr. B was his wife's teacher. There was a 4-year difference between them. During my senior year of high, Mrs. B left her husband of about 8 years for a student she had the previous year who graduated. She was in her 30s, and the student was 18. Oh, the irony. Teacher started a thing with a sophomore student. The next school year, the teacher gets pregnant. School found out that the baby daddy is a 16-year-old student, so teacher is fired but not arrested. I switched to a much better school after that year, but I heard that teacher and student got married his senior year. That was 18-19 years ago. I wonder if they're still together. Had a substitute teacher choke me. I didn't know what to do, but the next day, the principal came in and talked with me about. Luckily 2 fellow students went and reported it. Teacher was caning a student. Back in the 70s on the hand. Kid grabbed the end of the cane and broke it. Teacher then thrashed the kid all over with the broken part of the cane. Later apologized and visited the kid in the sick bay. Was never charged with anything and saw out his career at the school. Was deputy principal. Told me to stop milking a broken arm caused by another student, effectively saying I was lying for attention and I'm wearing the cast to get sympathy. Watched P. He also note, he was a substitute in his 30s who still lives with his mom. Best part, we were in 7th grade. A kid passed me a threatening note, and the teacher made me sit with him all lunch because I was ruining her trust and our relationship. Mama Bear wasn't happy. Not in my class, but a different class in my school had a kid with 2 raters and the substitute didn't know that. I'm sure you can figure the rest out. Oh boy, it was elementary school, and the teacher was using a projector, old school, with a bulb. Turned the room lights off. She was trying to have us sing some song about mayflies or something. Anyway, we had this kid, we'll call him Bobby. Bobby was real smart but had a problem with interrupting the teacher. A lot. Well, I guess Bobby interrupted one too many times that day. As the teacher is reciting this song on the projector and we sing along with her, Bobby chimes in about something and our teacher just snaps. She screams. Bobby shut the frick up while slamming her fist on the projector in cadence with her yelling. By about the 3rd fist slam, she shatters the projector and breaks the bulb. The entire class sat in stunned, dark silence for what seemed like minutes. That was 3rd grade. I'll never forget it. I was the school store manager in high school and the store was affiliated with DECA, which is a business organization club for high schoolers to get into business. Anyway, I was doing the numbers for the store and there were discrepancies in the ordering numbers versus stock numbers, among many other weird signs from my teacher. Turns out she was embezzling money from DECA and the school system, and I caught it. I was in DECA. It was basically my life for a few years. Makes me sad that she did that, but at least you caught it. My science teacher would occasionally come into class as a guest. These were unprompted and annoying as he often pretended to be an idiot on some subjects and it meant we had to try to teach him. Once he pretended to be a flat earther and said our teacher challenged us to prove him wrong. Funnily enough, a classmate tried, and I think succeeded, to get out of working that day by siding with our guest. Another time he had us go through more of a psych experiment to see if we could taste the difference between sodas. The trick was they were all the same. He was actually a decent teacher but he was quite odd. 8th grade math teacher, boys football coach, picked up and threw a chair across the room at me and my girlfriend. It punched a hole with one of the legs through the folding wall between classrooms. The history teacher next door flipped out on him and then screamed him all the way to the office. He had to make an apology to the class to keep his job. Then in high school I ended up getting expelled my freshman year and had to attend a small alternative school sophomore year. We had a total cokehead for a principal. Crap was nuts. We had a whole building full of delinquent drug-using teenagers, so word of this crap gets around. One day the fire alarm goes off, so we all get up and file out of the classroom. We have never had a fire drill here, mostly because the building is so small, so we all kinda just file outside towards the parking lot, and as we are passing out through the main entrance we pass our principal. He has climbed onto a table and has stuck toilet paper in his ears and his nose, and he was doing the funky chicken dance while spitting water. I think it was water at and onto us as we passed by. I was stoned at the time and it was all very surreal. I never saw him again after that day. We had a new fat bald guy the next day. Tried to keep my Dr. Seuss book. It was fricked up and had paint on it, but she insisted it was the school's. She was a crappy teacher and the reason I was homeschooled until 6th grade. 3 years ago, my 7th grade civics teacher once went batshit crazy during class and went off on a kid for defending her amb. She went on for almost half an hour ranting and yelling about how it wasn't the mother's fault and Hiram deserved to die. That freaking gorilla. My German teacher grew up in Germany and spoke like 6 languages. While she spoke English very well, there were some words or phrases she didn't understand. One day in class somebody said the N-word and she did not know what it meant. Just trying to stay out of trouble, this kid said it meant friend. A few days later we're walking out of class and this kid tripped and dropped his books. Another kid stopped to help him pick them up, and seeing this the German teacher smiled and said, "Oh, you guys are such great N-words." Another teacher heard this and was understandably shocked and pulled the German teacher aside to explain the real meaning of that word. My grade 7 teacher threw my chair at the door leading to the hallway and yelled at me to go to the principal's office because I forgot to do my math homework and she was already in a bad mood. I was told us boys were not allowed to sit on beanbags in the library because we were boys and are meant to stand. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.